Hello and welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast. BuiltOnAir is a regular podcast where we talk with everyday people and learn about the amazing things they are doing with Airtable. Today's podcast is sponsored by OpenSide, the leading solutions provider for Airtable customers. Check out openside.com to learn more about their products and services that can take your Airtable usage to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir to receive $20 towards any product purchase. On today's episode, we speak with James Jackson. James describes himself as a digital designer with really excellent taste, and we have to agree. His website is full of colorful, eye-catching designs, peppered with blog-style posts on his life and his work in the technology industry. In 2013, James was a content writer reporting on arts and culture in North Carolina. He befriended an engineer, and so began his foray into building things with tech. He changed roles from a content writer to a junior developer, and after a few years, packed up and moved to the big city, New York. After taking a couple of classes, he fell in love with design. Adding up all of his talents yields a recipe for success. James brings together content, design, and development to solve problems. He has always been a proponent for finding the right tool for the job, and Airtable checked all of the boxes. The project James demos for us today is his weekly summary base. The power of this base lies in its simplicity. Team members have access to a form that is filled out on a weekly basis, and managers have access to see the responses. With only 2 tables, James has set up an easy and compelling way for managers to see what's going on within the projects they manage. Check out the show notes for links to see James's designs and his website, which includes a write-up on his weekly summary project, complete with screenshots and explanations. Good afternoon, James. Thanks for joining us on BuiltOnAir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, we are super excited to chat with you today. So you are a digital designer, and I'm super interested in that. That was like my first forte was in graphic arts. So I love the work I've seen on your site, and I'm interested in how you got started in that field.
Yeah. I'm a digital designer. I do a lot of also like strategy and copywriting and engineering, really just like whatever a project like calls for. My experience is like really diverse. I started back in 2013 as like a reporter for this magazine down in North Carolina, where I was really just listening to people and like telling their stories. And that's kind of how I got my foot into tech. And so I started at this agency down in North Carolina as a content writer. And I kind of got a little bit disillusioned with it, and then started looking to build things. And so I kind of befriended this engineer. Fast forward 3 years, I built a lot of like side projects, was able to actually take on a junior dev role at that same company. And I think after about 3 years of that, I was in North Carolina and it was feeling a bit small for me. And so New York had kind of always been the goal for me. So I transitioned. And so I moved to New York. I took a couple of classes at SVA, some design classes, and kind of just fell in love with design. And then I got a job like doing design. And then my latest job was in design operations, which kind of brings me to like how I started using Airtable. I was working with engineers and like the data team and like client managers and to kind of create these new systems and processes for our design team. And I kind of got to the point now where I bring content, I bring design, I bring development together to solve problems.
That's awesome. So you started off in like content creation and moved to engineering and then design, and oh my gosh, that's awesome. So you're a jack of all trades.
Yeah. I'd categorize myself as that for sure.
Awesome. That's super, super cool. I can definitely relate to that. I'm a little bit all over the place myself. So, and I've found that Airtable is really helpful in bringing that all together.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, I've always been a big proponent of like finding the right tool for the job. And it's funny, my fiance, she calls me like a digital maintenance man. So I kind of take that and kind of run with it. And I just like pick whatever tool works for whatever I'm trying to get done.
And do you think that's Airtable most of the time?
It is Airtable most of the time. It's just like super, super flexible. And you can kind of do whatever you want with it. I mean, you could probably run a whole company with on Airtable, honestly. It's just like you can make it exactly what you want.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really, really cool. So what was the first like project you started using Airtable for?
Yeah, so let's see. I was introduced to Airtable maybe a couple of years ago, but like I was doing design at the time and it didn't really click for me.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really fit into my daily task flow.
Mm-hmm.
But earlier this year, I was actually reintroduced to it through a product strategy guy that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how he used it and how his team used it, it kind of like clicked for me. Um, and so at the time I was working on this sort of like mini retrospectives project where I would take these like daily design tasks from our project management software, and kind of see like where we could do better and where we could sort of tighten up our turnaround time for our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like taking those and sort of categorizing them by issue to see what kinds of like holistic solutions we could come up with,
Mm-hmm.
like who was involved and sort of like, and like the relational element of Airtable just like came into play. Like it was kind of revolutionary for me at the time, and it was perfect timing for me. And I was really just like looking for trends, and Airtable just allowed me to do that really well and really easily.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the linking thing is what really sent me running with it. I was like, oh my gosh, I was trying to make Excel do all these things that it couldn't do, like using sheets and trying to relate the two. And I'm just like, that's not going to work. So Airtable really came and saved the day there. That's awesome. So you were a reporter in North Carolina, and that was on like arts and culture.
Yeah, it was.
Super, super cool. So are you an artist yourself? Does that play a role in your design daily life?
I wish I was an artist. I have a lot of respect for artists and kind of what they do, and um, I think at heart I'm an artist. I've always been a bit of a wanderer,
Mm-hmm.
um, like really curious personality ever since I was a kid. So I have a lot of respect for artists who can kind of capture that, and even like as adults, like capture that sort of wonder and curiosity and put it into what they do.
Absolutely. Well, in all honesty, in looking at your website, I would think you are definitely an artist. I would consider that 100% a fact. Like, I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so are your designs, do you use like Illustrator or Photoshop or all of the
Uh,
above?
Yeah, so lately I used to use Illustrator and Photoshop. Lately I've been more on the Figma train,
Okay.
a little bit of Sketch. So kind of modernizing my tools a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Figma I've heard a lot about recently as well. I'm super interested in that.
Yeah, it's huge for especially now as like remote teams that can just like jump into a project and work on it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of like the same way Airtable is as well. I think that's where a lot of apps are kind of going towards is this collaborative field.
Yeah, for sure. And just having I think visibility is another huge thing that Airtable solves too. Um, yeah, I think that it's just like the relational element. If you sort of look at if you can see like how other teams are like solving issues, I'd say a lot of times those solutions can relate to the issues that you're dealing with on your team. And so like Airtable allows you to sort of peek over the fence at other teams and um, create solutions um, for like all these teams together. So it's really interesting in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So are you a bit of a coder yourself as well?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of how I had my sort of aha moment on the web when I learned how easily you can sort of build things with code.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and so I've been doing it since probably 2014, 15. Yeah, and it just makes me a better designer. knowing what's actually possible. And I have a lot of like friends who are engineers that I talk to and I can talk through things with. And it really just like opens your mind once you figure out, oh, like I can actually do this thing that I've been thinking about pretty easily on the web.
Exactly. So what kind of languages are you using?
Yeah, so I've really just been using, I'm a front end dev. So just HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Um, and I feel like I can get whatever I need to get done with those things.
Agreed. Yeah, that's my experience as well. Definitely interested in looking into other paths as well, but yeah, those are definitely the core ones I've been using. Have you done anything with the scripting block that's new from Airtable?
I haven't actually.
Super, super excited about it. It's JavaScript based, and you can like build all sorts of different things, like reports, and you can create records from it. Like you could prompt your user through questions in order to create records in the base, which is super cool.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, I think with your JavaScript background, you'd be able to make use of it, and I'd be excited to see what you come up with. It's super cool.
Well, that's really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested because I mean, I don't know if I'd consider myself a designer, but my background is in art. And I've found Airtable to have, I mean, I find it so compelling because of its design. And have you found any parallels there as well?
I think it's an incredibly designed, like well designed piece of software. I think that's probably one of the first things I look for in a new piece of software is like how well it's designed. Because I think design is, design isn't really easily quantifiable all the time. So I feel like companies who put resources into design are companies that I want to be associated with. Because design is just, it's so important, just like from, a user perspective or even like from a psychological perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just like I said, a lot of these things aren't quantifiable, but it's such an important like factor that a lot of companies don't think about.
Agreed. Absolutely. And you can tell Airtable definitely has a certain aesthetic that they keep with, which I find very impressive.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So are you like using any automations in your bases that you've set up, like with Zapier?
I haven't integrated Zapier. I was looking at an integration with Rike and how like Zapier can connect those two things. But Rike ended up not being as flexible as I wanted initially, so I had to scrap that. But yeah, there's definitely like a ton of things you can do with the Zapier integration in Airtable.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming almost. Like, I don't know. The first Zap I set up, I was like, what else can I do? And just like kind of got addicted to automating. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, like before, I mean, you can kind of make Airtable whatever you want it to be. And like using integrations like that and like using the blocks and like you can run a company off of it. It's pretty incredible.
It really is. So what are some other examples of bases that you've designed or what you're using Airtable for?
So I've been using it for these like weekly summaries for my team. Um, and this is like a problem that, I saw it a while back, but I wasn't really sure how to solve it until I was introduced to Airtable. And, the problem was like, I was like, how can my managers get consistent weekly summaries of, their team's work? And this wasn't just my manager, it was other managers throughout the company who were dealing with this problem. And then like on the flip side of that, how can team members sort of submit that as easily as possible? So really just like removing friction from both sides. And, there were some like, we started off using like email, but email is like not really manageable. And, you can't see the relations between different people's work. And then so it moved to, I think, a Google form with the spreadsheet. But again, like that relational part was missing. And it's not not a great thing to for managers to look at all the time. All managers, especially in the design field, don't want to look at spreadsheets. And so that's when I came on Airtable. Airtable sort of brought in this form functionality. It brought in this like database functionality, but really the relational piece was the big part that was missing from these other solutions. And it just, I looked at some of some functions that would kind of automate things for me, and it came together pretty well.
That's awesome. Do you have any plans on what you're going to do next with it?
Next, really just like releasing it as widely as possible. Just getting it in front of people. I think once people understand how powerful and how flexible Airtable is, they sort of get it. And so, really just like getting it in front of as many people as I possibly can.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you presented it on your website. You have like, I saw the screenshots of like the formulas that you put in and just like really described everything in a really easy to understand way, which I found super, super cool. Definitely like a way to package it up and present it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a big fan of, case studies, especially from a design perspective. And I think when you can explain something pretty simply, I think it's a good indicator of you understanding what the problem is and how to solve it. And so I've always taken that sort of case study solution to all of the problems that I deal with.
Absolutely. And it's definitely, it's an efficient way to present it to whomever you're presenting it to. And have you considered like publishing it on the universe that Airtable has?
I think it is published on
Great.
Yeah. I actually just published it, I think, last week.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations. That's super cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I'm excited to see it. Do you want to, that's the project you're going to be sharing with us today?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So here is my weekly summary base. And this is like where all the content sort of pipes in. So you'll see like you'll have like some names here. These would be the names of the manager's direct reports. And then based on the week that they submit their information, it'll be cataloged under here. Under like notes for this, I only have just like notes fields on the form that I'll show you in a minute. And so, yeah, it kind of just gives the manager sort of this dashboard that they can look at. They can expand and collapse like whatever they need. And then they can also sort of like see where things are related. And this is kind of interesting. I'm doing a lot of work in these forms. So you'll see here, I have like a formula here. It's name and the weekly. This is really just like naming what the title of each of these are based on the date. And then I have some hidden fields here. So if I show you these other fields. So week number is kind of interesting.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I didn't see the new fields come up. Yeah, I still only see notes project 1, notes project 2, and 3, and there's no other fields. It seems to be kind of stuck.
Oh, can you see me expanding and collapsing things?
No.
Oh shoot! What happened?
Oh, no. Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry, James. The article I read about that said you might have to restart the app for it to work properly. Oh, wait, it just caught up. Okay. Maybe try like expanding and collapsing one just so I can see if it. No, I think it's just being super slow.
Yeah, it said it may have to restart
Okay.
Zoom.
I'm so sorry. If
It's okay.
if you want to like leave and come back and then we can start from the beginning of the screen share part, maybe that would work.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I feel so bad. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's like a weird issue.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
Okay. So I'll be back in like a few minutes.
Wonderful. I'll
Okay.
be here.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
All right. Do you want to do a test first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. So I will share my screen. Summary. Looking. Okay. Expanding, collapsing.
All right. We're in business for real this time, I think.
Okay. Great.
All right. Excellent.
Ready to go?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Let's see. So this is my weekly summary base. So here you'll see kind of each name or each team member and what they did for that particular week. And so the cool thing here is like the manager, whatever manager is like looking at this, they can kind of see in like this little dashboard what their team has been working on, and then based on the questions that you ask on this form that I'll show you in a minute, you can kind of see how things relate to each other, and that's sort of like the power of Airtable, right? So here I'll see like the title is doing some work on the formula side, just like pulling in the name, and then I have some hidden fields here that are kind of interesting. So the week number field, for example, is just like taking what week it is like in the year, and then we're also using this week of field. To kind of parse that date, and all that like wraps up into this like week of 42620, so that like everything is so like let's say one of the team members wants to submit their form on like a Sunday of that week, for example. What I'm doing here is like making it so that every week starts on Monday, and so that if they put it in on Sunday, it still counts for the week that they just finished. So kind of like taking into account some edge cases here. So I'll show you the form that the information gets. So here is the form. So basically you would just like add your name, type in any notes for any of the particular projects they're working on, and then you submit it. And so if there's like multiple projects or multiple things that they want to submit, you can submit another response. It's pretty simple. And so then like all that sort of like pipes into the next week. So it's pretty interesting how it kind of comes together, and how people can put in this information, but it's like really frictionless on both sides. It just makes it easier for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's super, super simple solution to a very complicated problem.
Yeah, it was a problem that we were dealing with, and I don't think it's a unique problem by any means.
Mm-mm. No, this could be used literally any industry, any job. Like, kudos to you for making a solution that could fit any box.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's kind of what I strive for, is just like making solutions, that are like holistic, and things that I know will come up in other places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I strive for. Like even as a designer, you want to make the simplest solution for the problem, and that's kind of what I was trying to do here.
Well, you definitely succeeded. I can tell. So do you use this? So for managers, like, do you use like an email function to send them an alert when somebody submits it, or do they just come here as their dashboard weekly?
Yeah, so it's kind of up to the manager themselves. There's definitely, Airtable is definitely as flexible, as you want to make it. And those reminders can for sure happen. But it's really just like dependent upon whoever is like using this and like whatever they're like using it for.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how cool it is, because it's that flexible. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to get another email. I could just come here to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of gives them like one place to kind of consume this information.
Exactly. And like the filters are cool too, because you could say, oh, I want to just go back and look at, last month or what's going on just right now. So that's super cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's awesome. Frankly speaking.
It really is. And I could see a use for this, like I said, any industry. And that's something I love the most about Airtable, is that it's really a one size fits all solution. You can tailor it to your needs.
Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. Well, that's so cool. And so you're using this like at your place of work, and have you pushed it out to other places that are using it?
Yeah, so we're using it at my place of work. Well, yeah, we're using it at our place of work. Haven't like pushed it very widely. It's very much like in the testing phase right now. But we're looking to do that pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, it looks great. Really, I think you've taken advantage of the tools that are given and put it into a very simple and easy to use platform.
Thank you.
Of course. Bravo. Do you have any plans for what's next?
What's next? So like as far as this, like we'll just like keep testing it, keep breaking it as much as we can to make it better. I'm using Airtable in my personal life. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now, like obviously we're planning this like whole Colorado move, and a lot of that is taking stock of all the things that we own, and kind of categorizing it. So like, do we want to sell it? Do we want to donate it? Do we want to trash it? And so what I did is just like kind of categorized everything, something that me and my fiance can look at together. And then just like after we categorize it, we can sort of like make a plan to sort of like put these things in their respective buckets. So it's like really come in handy across the board in my life, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great idea to use it for planning a big move, because that would be a huge move, New York to Colorado. Like, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. And like having to move all your stuff. And that would definitely help. I mean, especially when you get there too, because you can be like, oh, got this, didn't lose that. Everything's here and accounted for. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer in good documentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's super important. Yeah, and Airtable helps you do that for sure.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, great. That's super cool. And I wish you the best of luck on your move.
Thank you. It's going to be a big job, but I think we can tackle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a huge move for sure. But Colorado's awesome.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So where can our listeners go to learn more about you and your design work?
You can go to my website. My website is James Darin. That's JamesDarin.com. I put a lot of work on there. I write a little bit. So there's some writing on there. And it just links out to all my social profiles as well.
Awesome. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for chatting with us today, James. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And have a great rest of your day and a great weekend too.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.